Yeah, we should be already live. I can confirm.
Tells us we are. Yeah.
On YouTube.
Yeah.
But yes, here we are. And yeah, I want to welcome everybody to this new live. And today with us, there are Nandi and Anne from South Africa. We've been so far to Brazil, Italy, and Germany. And today is time for South Africa. Welcome again. This is Social Dreaming Talks. And this is a talk that Kalina and I started in February, and it's continuing, and we are having more and more interest and more guests that want to participate, and that makes us very happy. And because we are happy to make a conversation about social dreaming, mostly because we want to learn more about it and learn from the people that are doing it, and also put these people that work in different parts of the world together to see what's similar, what's different, and see what emerges in this conversation. But now I pass the word to Kalina, that's going to introduce the talk, and I'll be in the background as usual to check the live chat. And if you have any question, if you have anything, you can write in the live chat, and I will be reading. And we're going to have the last 15 to 20 minutes to ask questions directly to Nandi and Anne. So yes, thank you, Kalina.
Yes, thank you, Fabio. Welcome to our viewers, and I'm delighted to introduce our two guests today, Anne Morgan and Nandi Mhlongo. And Anne trained as a social worker and later as a group analyst at the Institute of Group Analysis, London. She worked in social service departments and therapeutic communities in London as well. For the last 18 years, she has lived in South Africa, where she helped develop group analytic training and social dreaming matrices with her daughter Nandi. And Nandi is a talent acquisition specialist working for the biggest bank in Africa. She has a BA degree in psychology, and she's specializing in working with groups. For Nandi, dreams and dreaming are a way of communicating across boundaries, and she is experimenting ways to use them in her professional life. Anne and Nandi, would you like to add something to your very short introductions that I just made?
I suppose I'd like to say that I didn't start hosting social dreaming until I was here in South Africa. But I attended some of Gordon Lawrence's social dreaming matrices at various conferences in Europe when I was living in Europe. And that sparked an interest, and that was a long time ago, but I've kept that interest since. And we thought that it would be a very useful way of bringing rather separate communities of people together through dreams, and it's actually to be very effective. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, so it also, just to add that, as you said in the introduction, Kalina, that I had wanted to see how I could make use of social dreaming in work settings. I believe that it has been used in many organizational contexts, and I just really feel that, especially in a country like South Africa, as Mum said, where people have lived very separately, according to social groups, it continues to be a way of perhaps being able to look to crossing those boundaries, because what happens in the matrix assists people in talking about things that they might not have spoken about. And I don't have a lot of experience in hosting. It's probably a couple of years since I've been, supporting Mum in hosting the matrices, and especially those increased since last year, since the lockdown began and we started taking it online.
These are really interesting developments, bringing communities together, and also trying to apply it in your professional context. It would be really interesting to say a bit more. And in our preliminary meeting, we thought of the discussion around two main questions. And the first one is your thoughts, feelings, and experiences of organizing and hosting social dreaming matrices in South Africa. Could you reflect on that?
Would you like to go?
Not really.
Okay. So for me, I think that I really think that we could do more with social dreaming in South Africa. I really feel as though I would like to reach a wider community of people. It seems that our group, although there is probably a community of around maybe 50 people that I know of who are in our group, they don't always attend all of the matrices, but we know of them and they know of us. But it seems to be a very homogenous group. So we get a lot of people from similar backgrounds. So it would be of more value if more people could get involved. And I think that's why I was interested in being part of this talk today, because these talks can only build on, the network that becomes aware of social dreaming. Yeah. So I think it's also, it's become apparent to me that there needs to be a way of perhaps reaching people who don't know of Gordon Lawrence and don't necessarily I don't want to say believe, but don't necessarily subscribe to the same viewpoint of what a dream actually means in Gordon Lawrence's context in the social realm, where I think that more people here may believe that a dream is a direct message from an ancestor or somebody who has lived in a previous life. So I think that to contextualize it differently would help in a setting like South Africa. Yeah.
How do you explain social dreaming to people who have no idea what it's all about, or who have a completely different concept of what dreams are or ideas?
You take that one.
I suppose if I was explaining to somebody, I would describe how a social dreaming matrix takes place. And then I would suggest that actually they join one to see, because it's difficult to describe it unless people participate. But actually I did do a social dreaming matrix in the small town that I live in, which is a small rural town. And it was very interesting in terms of social relationships, because we started off in a cafe in the middle of town, where people from various different backgrounds came. And then we lost that venue, and a couple of friends of mine who live in the location, they were able to book a hall in the location. And when we moved there, nobody from town came, which was such a sad thing, actually. It does make quite a statement about the fragility of interracial relationships still in South Africa, I think. Yes. So then it faded out after that. There were a few sessions, and then we stopped doing it locally, or I stopped doing it locally.
Mm.
And then it continues to. We continue to hold matrices now that we've moved into a digital age. So since the lockdown and since we moved to virtual social dreaming, it's also, I feel, it's difficult to increase participation numbers, because what about people who don't have access to Wi-Fi or data or technology? That means we cannot access people who are in a position which does not allow them to join an event. So that also skews the people that we would be able to reach in terms of participation in a way. And I haven't really thought how to get past that one, other than to wait until, we're able to meet face to face again, and then look at ways of, increasing, the reach that it has.
One of the interesting things, though, is that I do some work in Rwanda and do a social dreaming matrix during a 5-day training period. And although I'm not doing the social dreaming at the moment online like this, we're doing some of the rest of the course online, and the people in Rwanda seem to be able to do some of this online stuff from work, whereas here in South Africa it just doesn't seem to happen. I don't know why, but people don't seem to be. Well, it just doesn't happen. I don't understand it, actually. It is possible to reach people online, because they could do it at work, but maybe employers are different, or I can't really make a reason.
Yeah. So when did you? Yeah, Nandi. Sorry.
No, I'm saying I just wanted to comment on what Mum was saying about doing it at work. I mean, if it was part of an organized event for a group of employees at work, then yes, that could happen. But just, taking time out at work to do a social dreaming matrix, it wouldn't be, it would probably be frowned upon, I think, if you were at work. But the other thing is that in what we were discussing just now about the ability to actually describe what is a social dreaming matrix and what is social dreaming and what could you get out of social dreaming. Sometimes I found, so I think one of your questions was around the challenges. I've found that is in itself a challenge. Like, how do you get people to understand what value add could be from social dreaming? I think that's been the things that I've struggled to get past, so that would be a challenge.
Yes, I'm trying to imagine corporate environment, and you go there, and their people are used to strategies and protocols and all that, and you walk in and you say, I would like to invite you to share your dreams.
Yeah, exactly. So I had a boss once a couple of years ago who I wanted to implement this in a company that I was working in. Well, not implement it, but I wanted to maybe perhaps do a matrix with some people, some of the staff. And my boss said to me, oh no, we can't do something like that. And I went away feeling like, I've spoilt the opportunity to really describe what social dreaming how it can benefit a corporation, or how it could add value by saying, hey, let's just do it without a good introduction or explanation of what is it all about. And then since then, I've always been looking for a way of being able to describe it in a way that will not chase people away, because some people have very, like you say, they're about strategy, and then some people have some viewpoints which don't, social dreaming sounds too out there for them, like I don't know how to put it, but that's my experience of corporate anyway.
Mm. So how did you start? What was the beginning? How did you start or organizing the social dreaming matrices? You are, as far as I understood, you are sort of pioneers. You were the people who started running and organizing social dreaming matrices.
Well, so like Mum was saying, she had done a couple going back maybe over the past 10 years in the small town where she lives, and then also having some at an NGO in Johannesburg. We used to hold them on a Thursday evening. Yeah, a Thursday evening. And sometimes we would literally get 2 participants, and it was face to face, and people would come along and sit in the library in a butterfly or a snowflake, and we would host, but we couldn't host if there were only 2 people. So we would end up sitting and chatting for the evening and hoping that the next time around we get more participants. And during the summer months, people would come out on an evening, on a Thursday evening from 7 o'clock until 9 o'clock. But in the winter months in Johannesburg, it actually gets quite cold. So people would not want to come out. And then when the lockdown happened, that's when I think we really started to get a large number of people. So it's always been 12 or more people. There was just that happened at Christmas time where there were only 2 or 3 of you, right? Yeah. So it's really been, it's been great, the numbers that we've been getting since April 2020, about a month into the South Africa lockdown. And we've been trying to sort of do them around themed events. So we had a discussion today, Mum and I, about whether or not the theming of the events, for example, the last one, which was last Saturday, or Saturday before, last Saturday, it was for Human Rights Day in South Africa, which is the commemoration of the Sharpeville massacre, which happened in 1960. So we were talking today about whether or not theming the event with such a commemoration would drive the matrix in a particular direction, you know, and we probably experienced that some participants have contacted us afterwards to say, oh, you know, I was really kind of shocked at what came out of the matrix, and I didn't know this about South Africa, and perhaps it's possible that the actual theme caused the matrix to go in a particular direction. So we were thinking, you know, maybe it would be worthwhile doing some which are just, I don't want to call it ad lib, but like just free, not free from any association to a particular event. But last year we did one for Women's Day, which is in August in South Africa, not the same as International Women's Day, it's the South African version. And we had a couple of other themes planned until we had that conversation today.
But one of the things that going online has done is that it's opened our South African matrix to people from America, Italy, and other places, which I suppose dilutes to an extent the South Africanness of it. But it also is interesting because people maybe want to learn about South Africa, so that's part of the reason perhaps they come. And it can be quite interesting to have people who are strangers to South Africa as well. I think it adds something as well.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It adds something in having a global footprint for our matrices, but it also takes something away in that COVID has caused us to need to speak to each other online as opposed to in the same room, where you could maybe pick up some non-verbal cues or intangible things that just don't happen when you're speaking to somebody on a computer. So there are pros and cons, I guess. We had one matrix last year, which a lot of people really enjoyed. I myself enjoyed it, where we had light and dark matrix. So we had cameras off for the first part of the matrix, and then the reflection group, people turned their cameras on. So I found that really quite relaxing. I think some people even lay down while they dreamt in the matrix. And I think for me as a host, I mean, sometimes I feel a bit funny calling myself a host because I don't have any special training in this. I've just been,
Well, we went to one workshop.
Yeah, we went to one
Serbian workshop.
We went to one workshop recently, but I haven't had any training. I've just been, taking mum's lead. So I think you also asked, what are your challenges as a host? And I would say that for me, a challenge as a host is, it's quite nerve-wracking to be, trying to assist and move the matrix along without wanting to share your own dreams and without wanting to jump to associations which might be too literal. But it's been a learning curve for me, actually. Yeah.
And for me too. I mean, and also we've had some help from Nicola Rexford Howard and
Martin. Yeah. Martin Walker. Yeah.
We discussed some of the matrices we've done with them, which has also been helpful.
Mm-hmm. How important is it, Nandi? You mentioned you don't have training. I'm not quite sure what it means to be trained as a social dreaming host. And my question is for both of you, how important is to have a proper training or any? And what does it mean to have a training in social dreaming, to host?
So in answer to that, I would push that back to a participant in any of the matrices that I've been a host for. What does it mean for you? What did you feel during that matrix if you were a participant and you were being hosted by somebody who doesn't have training? And seconded to that, like you say, what is training? I think, this one workshop that we went to, I think I did gain some insight out of it, but I still feel at the same time to just do it, to just dive in and just do it and learn as you go is enjoyable. It's a bit nerve-wracking, to be honest, but it's enjoyable and it's doable, I think. Yeah.
And also learn by being part of other matrices. I think you learn more that way. Although Martin Walker recently said to me, basically that I was too much of a group, he didn't quite say that actually, too much of a group analyst. And I had to be, forget the group analysis. And, a dreaming matrix is something quite different. And he's right, actually. It certainly made me think.
Yeah.
Could you say that is a question that we are trying to kind of clarify a little bit? How is it different from group psychotherapy? How is social dreaming different from group psychotherapy?
Well, I think what sparked that response was that I think I asked people about their feelings. And, as I am beginning to understand it, the dreaming matrix is about the dreams and about the associations, and getting into the sort of group dynamic area takes away from the sort of purity of dreaming and associations. And then hypotheses, perhaps the hosts, if they can, hypotheses about what might be taking place. To make a sort of observation about the group dynamic sort of takes away from it. Because I'm a group analyst primarily, I think I can slip into that quite easily, to the group analytic way. So I have to watch myself.
And I've also noticed, or I thought recently, that I've started a course working with groups, which I'm doing. And I think that in a group, you form opinions about somebody and they might form opinions about you, but in the matrix, that shouldn't be there. Yeah, that's just one thing that I've sort of noticed.
You're concentrating on the dreams.
Yeah.
The dreams are not the dreamer. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were saying something very interesting in your introduction also about bringing communities together. Could you say a bit more?
So I think it's, when speaking, it's very funny being in South Africa. I mean, I'm from London originally. I've lived here for 20 years, but I think I'm finding more and more as I get involved in these global conversations with people from different countries, how little people actually know about South Africa. So I don't want to speak from the perspective that you don't know anything about South Africa, or that anybody who is listening doesn't know anything about South Africa. But I think that I would like to say that this country has a history of separation. And because of the way things were before, it perpetuates into today that people still live very separate lives based on racial groupings. And that permeates throughout. And I feel as though one of the ways in which social dreaming could benefit such a society is that maybe people would be able to talk about things which they have never been able to discuss before. Just as an example, some of the things that might have happened historically here that people can't address on a daily basis with each other, and just say simmering under the surface without being addressed, leading to continued separateness and alienation and frustrations and whatever it is that might be caused from people being so living together in a society but being so separate at the same time. It's a kind of I don't know any other society like this. I mean, having only lived in England and South Africa, but I think South Africa is quite unique in that. Not necessarily, I mean, I haven't lived in other countries, so there could be other places, but I don't think there was anywhere else except for maybe the southern states of the United States that where it was a law that people could not mix, you know, across racial groups.
Do you think then that it's important that we are different races? Well, sort of different races.
You and I?
Yeah.
So I think in the South African context, I think that it's an anomaly and a huge bonus or benefit that Mum and I happen to be on with different racial groups, but we are mother and daughter. Because reflecting upon that, there are some things that we could probably talk about which would be unspoken. And I think that's the whole thing I'm saying about social dreaming. It can often bring about things or give an avenue for things which have been unspoken to be spoken about.
So
that makes
yes. Do you tell the participants we are mother and daughter?
No, we don't. We actually don't. And most conversations I go into, I say to myself, am I supposed to call her mum? Or are we supposed to be, you know, but a lot of people would know because of the size of the group in South Africa and because of the background where everybody comes from. A lot of people would know us and know that we are mother and daughter. And then there have been sometimes when I've probably slipped up and said mum or something like that. Yeah, that's happened. So most people are aware, but we don't go into a matrix and say, I'm Anne, she's Anne, I'm Nandi, I'm her daughter. We never do that. Yeah.
Where do you see the main adaptations of the social dreaming when you moved to online, when you started doing it online? What is different, and did you have to make any adaptations to the method?
I don't
I think
so.
Well, there are certain things, like we were saying before, that have to be adapted, such as you can no longer sit in a snowflake or a butterfly.
Actually, I wanted to say something about that. Do you mind? Because
go for it.
No, because I started calling it a butterfly, and actually, I don't think people have. I think I got muddled between a snowflake and a butterfly, and so I called it a butterfly.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think anybody else calls it a butterfly. So really, we should call it a snowflake.
So the seating formation at Ububele, which is the NGO where we used to hold the face-to-face matrices, we used to arrange the chairs, and Mom always referred to it as a butterfly formation. So it was, and it is a butterfly formation because there's a wing there and a wing there, and then the body, and some in the middle. And then Martin was the one I heard saying a snowflake. So for me, I mean, it's what it is. It's a matrix of seats. Even if it's a butterfly, it's still I think it's, that's an adaptation, right? So I think that's one of the main adaptations. So we can no longer arrange the seats. People participate online, and that's the difference in the way that we would sit and the way that we would see people and see each other. And I think that obviously with the digital world and the digital age, things have changed to the extent that a matrix would have different start and end points, and maybe even some people, for example, dropping off halfway through because they've run out of data. Somebody disappears from the matrix in a way that somebody would never have got up out of the room and left without saying anything or taking their leave. So I think that's a huge change in the world. I don't know what else.
I just think the physical presence of being with people, and also the thing about doing it online is that you see everybody all the time. In the ones we've done, we have little boxes of people all over the screen, and maybe 2 screens. And in the room, you're not as sort of full on with people as you are online. And I think that's a disadvantage, actually.
Is this the reason why you ask people to switch off their cameras when they share the dreams?
So that was just one of the matrices that we did last year, where I think I was trying to be creative. So I wanted to see what would it be like if it's dreaming in the dark, for example. And I think it was probably selfish of me because probably I was feeling a bit nervous about hosting. So I was like, okay, what it would be like if nobody could see me and I couldn't see anybody, and how would that, make comfort in the matrix? And I really think that a lot of people gave feedback after that saying, oh, I felt so relaxed somehow, because I think the online version of social dreaming can also bring about the anxieties. I think we spoke about it a little bit in the beginning. When you're a technophobe, you're already anxious about, am I connecting? Is everything right? Do I sound okay? Is the lighting okay? Do I look okay? Things like that come into it, which wouldn't had you been in the same room as somebody, I think. Yeah. If that's answering you.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah. But I guess this is, I don't know, would I be able to get back to being used to doing it in the other way? I mean, it's kind of fun being able to connect to a wide range of countries, meeting all these different people from other countries and other locations. I would just wish that in time to come, maybe we could get some more Africa participation. So other countries like Rwanda, where Mum has done social dreaming in person. It's really just South Africa, Europe, and America at the moment. Yeah. For us,
the advantage of this is that you can reach more people, but it does have those disadvantages we mentioned. Yes.
There are pluses and minuses for both, I think. Yeah.
Anne, could you say a bit more about your work in, did you say Rwanda or Uganda?
No, Rwanda.
Rwanda, yes.
Well,
yeah.
Well, I'm part of a team who runs a group analytic training in Rwanda with a certain organization called Avega under the auspices of a organization called SURF, S-U-R-F. You know, you can look those up if you like. But I mean, basically, it's a group analytic training, and we have one social dreaming matrix during it. And usually it's a very large group of about 30 or more people. So,
is it part of the training? Is the social dreaming that you use in this training, is it part of the training, or it has another aim?
It's not part of the formal requirements of a group training that's going to be recognized by the Institute of Group Analysis in London. So it's not, but it's an addition that we thought would be quite creative and helpful. And I think it is. I think people like it. I think people seem to participate really a lot, actually. Yeah. I'm not sure that I can say any more than that, really. You know, I've been wondering to myself, are dreams different? But I haven't really worked that out. You know, in different countries, do dreams tend to be any different? But I can't say yes or no to that.
But now that you have international participants in the online matrices, perhaps you can get an idea. Do they bring completely different dreams, the different participants from all over the world?
Well, one of the things that Martin actually said was that he said there's an awful, what did he say? A lot of death.
No, so in the last matrix, which was about the massacre,
yes,
the theme was about a massacre that happened here. So a comment was that there was a lot of death in the matrix, but yes. I think that it wasn't necessarily a lot of death, it was a lot of
quite a lot of
violence and people people who had been silenced or were non-existent in, you know, not necessarily death actually,
unheard voices.
Yeah. So I think that, and then Mum mentioned that in Rwanda the dreams were similar. One of the matrices, I think you said earlier. So and that's hence the reason I was saying that maybe the theme of the matrix swung the matrix towards that. But then I thought that it couldn't necessarily be that, because the dreams would have happened before sometimes you even knew that you were going to attend the matrix. So I think that what I found is that sometimes with even people who are in another country, especially during COVID, the themes are the same, you know, fear of what's going to happen now during the lockdown, what's the new environment of being locked away, you know, those types of things came out a lot last year. And I think a lot around, you know, what now, basically, through all of this in 2020. And now we've reached a point where people are feeling anxious about the future and nobody really knows what's going to happen. And I think that was the theme of the last matrix as well. So for me, I think that globally, we're actually very similar. That's what I've noticed.
Fabio, I'm wondering if we've got any questions for Nandi and Anne from the viewers.
Yes, actually, we have some questions. We have a comment from Angela when we were talking earlier about social dreaming in the workplace. In fact, the comment is that she finds that an organized event at work is too scary, too intimate, and too vulnerable for dreams to appear. I don't know if you agree with that, or if you want to make a comment on this comment.
So I would really like to test it. I haven't tested it yet in a South African context. I mean, I live and I work here. I would like, because of the things that I've mentioned about the history of this country and the way that people are very separate, I would like to attempt it in a work context to see if it was of any value to anybody. I have a strong feeling that it would be. But I agree that it could be that it's too risky and too, making a person vulnerable. Yeah, I agree that that's a very strong possibility.
Although Gordon Lawrence himself started off in Shell, didn't he? So I don't know whether there's anything. Did he ever write anything about that? I wonder. Maybe Angela would know.
Yes, there's definitely reports on the social dreaming. Social dreaming seems to work very well in different type of settings, not just not just corporation or work, but even it's been used in Rwanda, as you can testify, in traumatic situation, as well as in situations that are less traumatic in this case. And so I think this is a good potential for social dreaming that can be used in different situations. And then we have also a question from Carla that she's been testifying here in these social dreaming talks how different it is to run a social dreaming matrix in Brazil, and she asked if she's curious on how traditional African relationship with ancestor, traditional medicine, and local tradition interfere in the dreams and on telling the dream in the matrix. Are there cultural taboos or different ways dreams are intended that may in a way interfere with the act of sharing dreaming in a group?
Well, that's what we were saying at the beginning, or Nandi said at the beginning, that we wonder if that does affect our African participants or non-participants, people who don't actually join up.
And hence the reason I was saying, there was a question that I had in our workshop around, okay, there is a theory founded by Gordon Lawrence about social dreaming. But if I try to attract people to being involved in social dreaming in Africa, am I allowed to, is it possible to not dilute that or change it, but make it so it's able to assimilate into a different culture without chasing people away who have a belief that, like I said at the beginning, that actually this dream is only associated to a message from my forefathers kind of thing, as opposed to my relation to other social beings. So that was and it's still a question. Yeah.
But there's something about dreams carrying messages which seems to be universal. I was listening to you. Sorry, I didn't hear you, Anne.
I just said yes, I agree with you. I mean, I've heard from other places as well.
Yeah, there is also an interesting theory that it's written by the ethno-psychiatrist Toby Nathan, which is wrote The New Interpretation of Dreams, where he said that basically as humanities, we share similar schemes when it comes to what happened in a dream. Maybe we are chased by somebody, we are silenced, we need to get to a place and we can't. And then whatever symbols that appear in a dream that usually are concern the interpretation of the dream for the individual depends on very much on the culture they come from. So it will be impossible to interpret the dream of an African person or of a certain African, because of course Africa is a melting pot of culture as well, like many other places. So will social dreaming actually, which doesn't look for interpretation but look to see with these different patterns, can speak like a universal language that can works across culture.
So in this journey, that's what I hope to be able to do with social dreaming in South Africa. Yeah. Find those connections which do exist between us all, no matter what we believe about dreams. Yeah.
And how is it going?
So this is a very new conversation. I think that this is something, so the whole of last year, we continued with our matrices in the tradition, but online. So in wanting to now perhaps grow and make this more diverse, this is going to be a journey which is embarked upon from now. You know, there will be more to talk about next time we do this. And I was also interested, I mean, I think Brazil might be, I mean, it's obviously very different from South Africa, but there may be some, you know, similarities. Yeah. And I was interested maybe to, you know, connect with people in Brazil through Carla to see what we could learn from each other on what similarities exist in both these cultures, or these melting pots of cultures, because it's not all about one.
Yes, in a way there is, you know, I believe that social dreaming is as a conception of dream which does not belong to the individual, so it's not a private phenomenon. But will there be other way of see dreaming, which kind of is in contrast with social dreaming, and therefore people that subscribe to this different view will be impaired somehow to participate to a social dreaming, because there's a clash of view, a clash of culture in a way.
But these are all things that we would take as learnings.
Discover, yes. Yeah. Were there any more questions?
I have one, because actually Anne and Martin Walker and Sarah Mononen from Canada, they ran a audio matrix that was an asynchronous event that kind of started after, you know, some ideas that we were sharing all together. Would you like, and Nandi was part of it as well as I was. So we were on WhatsApp sharing dreams through audio and throughout a moon cycle. Do you want to tell something about this experience?
I thought that was a really fascinating experience, actually, that it was a sort of ongoing matrix. I mean, one of the things that began to happen was that people posted things onto, because it was on WhatsApp, people stopped communicating by voice and posted other images and things. And there was a bit of a controversy, really. Was that helpful or wasn't it helpful? And I think I would say the jury's out on that, really. But either you tell people in the beginning no other means of communication other than the audio, or you accept that other things will kind of infiltrate it from other areas of knowledge, or, you know, postings from, yeah, I mean, you posted something, didn't you?
A lot. I posted a lot. I actually, that was my one of my favorite experiences in social dreaming. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot, being part of the moon matrix. And I think that it became more colorful in a way. So I don't know what it was about the use of maybe a digital media or that platform of communication that caused the ability maybe to share images and thereby made the matrix more colorful. It wasn't a very, some of the matrices, the mood is quite dark, not very joyful ever, hardly. I mean, it's usually about sad or issues, socially. But the moon matrix on WhatsApp it was a lively place, and it was enjoyable and creative and colorful. And I was actually sad when it ended.
Fabio, what did you think,
Fabio?
What was happening? What was happening in this moon matrix? I don't know very much. So people were posting dreams recorded on
voice.
Yeah. So it was dreams to be shared on voice notes on WhatsApp. So there was a group which was created, and Mum and Martin and Sarah were the hosts. And then
that's what I was going to ask. Yes, were there any hosts? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mum, Martin, and Sarah were the hosts, and then there were quite a number of participants, again from all over the world.
Yeah.
And because we were all in different time zones, clearly, so people would share a voice note when they woke up from a dream, and that might have been at 3 a.m. for us in South Africa, but then we would listen to the voice note in the morning and make a comment or association or sharing of a dream that we had had the night before on the audio matrix. And then I got to sharing pictures and some quite really interesting dreams, associations, and solutions out of that.
What did you think, Fabio? What did you?
Well, I found it was a very interesting experience. I enjoyed it because there was this ability to wake up from a night of dreaming and record the dream right away, which is not common in like face-to-face matrices. You actually had to travel to the matrix unless it was a residential one, which also offered this possibility. But it's so immediate, and it creates a real sense of community. And I was a little bit puzzled by, depending on how was my week, because it lasted a few weeks. So there were days where I was able to participate quite constantly, and other days that I was too busy and I couldn't even watch the messages or anything. So it was a bit tiring for the time frame, but definitely interesting because it was ongoing. It was like a magical things happening every day, and people would connect with their ability, more or less like it happens in a matrix, because even if you share dreams for an hour, I myself sometimes feel disconnected for a portion of the matrix. I have nothing to say. Sometimes I'm not interested in what's being said. And then all of a sudden something changed and I participate, I'm interested. So I felt it replicated quite well what happens in a matrix that's 1 hour long or done synchronously.
I think maybe 2 weeks of of that intensity would be perhaps more profitable than 4 weeks, having done it for 4 weeks. But
it was quite long. I mean, it was, but I enjoyed it so much that I usually used to listen to the radio whilst getting ready for work. And during the moon cycle, I switched on the dreams from the audio matrix and just listened to that while I got ready. So it was very enjoyable to me to let those thoughts and people's dreams sink in and then make my own connection or my own dream or thought into that matrix. It was really,
it was very
good.
It
was different. Yeah. I mean, some people might say, okay, that's not a social dreaming matrix because it was on WhatsApp. But then, the world has changed, clearly. Things are not the same as they used to be.
Yes, and
that's a good question.
Yes.
What is a social dreaming matrix? So can a social dreaming matrix happen on WhatsApp? What are the applications? I think there's way to explore, and in a way technology is showing that that some people think, and they probably are their reason to think that the experience online is completely different, that will never replace or maybe create something different that's no longer the social dreaming we used to know. But I think it's interesting to keep track of what's happening and keep making experimentations. What were you saying, Kalina?
More or less in similar, I was thinking with you in similar lines, so to say. And yes, there are very interesting adaptations and variations of social dreaming, but perhaps it's important to keep in mind and to know what is social dreaming. Otherwise, we can fall into the problem of anything goes. So any telling of dreams, any people's telling of dreams is a social dreaming. So it is important to be clear when does a group of people who tell their dreams online in real room, when does it make it a social dreaming matrix?
No, that does need to be kept in mind, I think, to be of any value.
Well, Fabio, are you going to close the conversation or?
Well, there's a fascinating end of the matrix open as usual, and I just want to report some comments on the chat. There's okay. Carla that says that she's very happy to connect with Nandi and Anne to share what's going on in Brazil and what that can be helpful in comparison to what's going on in South Africa. And I think I'm very happy that this could be a forum of connection. I think we can exactly talk about these difficult questions, these difficult themes, and see if they have a solution and keep the conversation going. So I want to invite everybody who's listening, or also the people that have been with us so far, to keep the conversation going. We can use the email, we can use the social media channel. You can leave a comment to the video, and we can keep these ideas going and see where they take us, if they have if something's going to happen.
Yeah, I think it would be nice. It'd be nice if we could have that conversation with Carla and yourselves, actually, I think.
Very happy to do that, and very happy to open it to whoever wants to contribute. And I want to thank you again for giving us this time together and talking about interesting stuff that we enjoy to learn. I hope it was also a learning experience for you as much as it was for me, and as I suppose for Kalina too. Is there any last thing you want to say before I close this connection?
Well, from my side, just to say thanks as well. I mean, it was an interesting experience. I enjoyed to speak with you about social dreaming, and look forward to the next time that we can do something like this.
And I will say thank you for having us, which I was taught as a child. I was taught as a child to say when I'd been invited somewhere.
I found the experience very invigorating. Talking with you, I found it very invigorating, really. So thank you very much, and thank you to our viewers as well.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.